This is Philip Chow. I'm the founder and chief investment officer of Experiential Wealth. We just recently issued our second quarter commentary, which the fact that the second quarter, we issue it every quarter. So this is the second quarter we just issued. And we talked about what is going on economically in the United States and how that may impact the way we think about portfolio construction and how we think about making investments for clients. So during the second quarter, what we wrote about is really about this, what we call a pivot from where it was to where it is. And I kind of title it called the ailment and the cure. And the reason I say that is we know what the ailment is. The ailment is that inflation. And the inflation is a nasty thing. Why is it a nasty thing? It's because the prices are going up and your wages may not. So we may not be able to afford the same standard of living as we once had. And as inflation continues to increase, it gets more painful. And this is particularly painful for the bottom half of the economic spectrum, where most of the money are actually earned and spent. And the economy is really driven, not by the top 10, 20, 30%, but it's really driven by the majority of us. And it is the majority of us that is going to get hurt by inflation. So that is the ailment, and we know that. And how did we get here? We'll make it very quickly for you. Is that before COVID, we were actually slowing. The economy was slowing down to 1.8% of real GDP, which is the gross domestic product, the inflation adjusted. That means the total services and goods in the society produced by the United States. And that's pretty low. Then COVID hits, and then we kind of closed down the economy and closed down all commerce and so on. And so that went down even more. Government said, boy, that's not going to work for us. We don't get reelected when everybody's feeling poor and not feeling good. So then they dumped in all this money and try to revive and to sort of put a safety net. And since then, of course, COVID recovered over time, that we have vaccine and COVID kind of minimized. And today, people are living with it a lot more appropriately or less severely. And so we got all this money and we are saying, well, let's go spend like drunken sailors. But at the same time, what do we have? We have a supply chain issue that's also COVID driven. And I won't repeat all the things, but for example, there are not enough truck drivers, there are not enough ships, and there are not enough harbors open, all those things. So make stuff that we want, which we've been spending extra money, not able to get. So classic situation, increased demand, lower supply, guess what? The price of whatever you need goes up. So inflation came around and still staying with us. He said, well, but we're changing that now because we are going to service as the economy opens. Well, service is having its own challenge, as you hear or read on the papers, that there are more jobs opening than people willing to fill it. And it's because some people don't want to fill it, some people may not have the skills to fill it, or those people who used to fill it have moved on to other jobs because now everybody's looking, so they could actually do that. So inflation is going to be with us on those fronts. And it's going to be with us for a little bit because it takes time to get back to normal, whatever normal means. The other problem is that we're also, as a world, going through energy transition. An energy transition from what we call carbon-based, which is petroleum, oil, gas, and all that, to this new energy, which is more greening. A lot of money went into the greening, EVs, electric vehicles, hydrogen, solar, wind, all that. But not a lot of money have been reinvesting in the carbon base, getting a new refinery or what have you. So we have abandoned the old infrastructure and spent all the money in the new infrastructure. The problem is the handoff. There has been no handoff. So all the money's gone this side, but it's still not enough. No money's going on this side, which really we need, but we're trying to run away from this side. So what we have is a conundrum that is going to take a while. So we have a supply shock on this side, because we're not producing as much, we're not fixing, we're not creating more. But on the other side, we're creating, but not creating enough and fast enough. So we are going to have an energy transition that is going to be non-equilibrium, right? So price is going to remain high. Then come Russia decided that they want to invade. And that did not help the supply chain, both from a metal or from anything else. So we are going to have an even more extended energy, and now including energy is food crisis, because Russia and Ukraine are big producers. They call the food basket of Europe, in fact, contribute to the world. So what we anticipate going forward is more inflation, may not be increasing inflation, but sustained higher inflation for much longer. So what is the cure? The cure is less reduced demand. Well, how do we do that? The Federal Reserve or the central banks of the world, the only thing they could do is what? Tighten financial condition. What is that? Increasing interest rates. So borrowing costs is more, we don't go and buy as much. We're going to dampen the economic enthusiasm, thus dampening the demand, thus dampening growth, thus possibly recession. So the cure is going to get us to a place that we don't like. It's a different place, right? But if we don't have a cure, we're at a place we don't like because we can't afford anything that we want. So therein lies this ailment and the cure. They all have problems. The question is, which set of problems do we want? The final analysis, shall we say, is that it's probably better if we have an economic slowdown and get price into control and then recover. That is a much healthier way to do it. The $64 question is, how long is the recession and how deep is the recession? The common wisdom right now tells us it's a shallow and short recession. My position is that I think it's going to be longer and it's not as shallow.